We're here with today with Saire Davis. Coach Sai has an illustrious track record of mentoring lacrosse athletes throughout the state of Georgia and has expanded to include the rest of the country. His training expands beyond the field as he has worked with prominent educational institutions and corporate entities to instill the significance of mental toughness and confidence development. His objective is to empower individuals to create the best version of themselves. Coach Sai is distinguished by his positive and motivational styles. Coach Sai encourages athletes to compete not only against opponents, but also against their own limitations, ultimately achieving victory within themselves. Coach Sai has also published a book titled Having Faith in the Unknown, Defeating the Odds of Adversity. Sai, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
So we're going to start off, and you mentioned on your website about being described as someone who beat the stereotypes that are placed on adolescents growing up in rough environments, or you can view him as a success story that is stained with failure. So why don't you tell us about who young Saire was?
Man, honestly, before I start anything, I want to tell y'all thank y'all for inviting me on to the show. I know this is something new for you guys. So I want to tell y'all thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to be on what you guys are trying to build and accomplish.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. So young Saire, man, I was hard-headed, didn't want to listen to nobody. I was always a talented athlete, always a good player in sports. I played just about every sport growing up, but I was always getting in trouble in school, always disrespecting my teachers, disrespecting my coaches, not listening to nobody. I always thought I was all that in a bag of chips, and I didn't really, I wouldn't say I was arrogant. I just didn't listen to nobody, man. And I was always getting in trouble, following the wrong crowd, hanging out with the wrong people that wasn't doing, the right things to be successful in school or sports. And so it ended up leading me down the wrong path. I was kicked out of middle school, got sent to alternative school. And like I said, I always was a good student, man. I always did my work. It always came easy to me, but I just was rebellious, to my teachers, to my coaches and everything. And so once I got into about 6th or 7th grade, I started, realizing that if I didn't change my actions, I wasn't going to be able to play. I always wanted to play football or basketball and make it to the professional leagues. I realized that if I didn't have my grades and if I didn't take care of my schoolwork and everything, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do it. And so I had a mentor come into my life in middle school and everything, and he kind of like helped me, get my mindset and everything right, and helped me, truly lock in on believing that I could really take football and basketball far. And once I started focusing on that, I started developing my own confidence, my own mindset and everything, and learned. I taught myself how to, truly get through adversity and everything. And so that's who I was as a young child, and that's my childhood and everything.
So how did you like you mentioned you got a mentor when you were in middle school? How did that come about? Did like someone reach out to you, or did you reach out to somebody? Like how did that come about?
To be honest, man, I got to thank God for it, because I didn't even know the guy. He was like, I think at one point he was dating my cousin, but then they stopped dating and everything. And then I used to see him around, like coming to our schools and everything, doing like mentorship for the kids in the school. And my mom and my grandmother, they somehow found a way to get in contact with him.
Okay.
And you guys know, parents find a way, man. They make it happen
absolutely
for their kids. Yeah, and so they made it happen for me. They knew that I needed that male guidance in my life, and he started coming into my life. Like, he would take me to the Falcons games or the Hawks games, and he would show me how professional those athletes were. And I was so like, that was my dream and my goal. And every little thing that they did, I tried to mimic. And he used to tell me, like, okay, they didn't just get here by, getting in trouble in school or getting kicked out of school or being disrespectful to their coaches. And so once I realized that, and I realized that it was somebody in my life that truly cared about me and believed in me. I was like, okay, I can really take this serious and change my act.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's so hard. Like when you think about like, especially as a kid, when you think you're on your own and you know stuff, and to have someone kind of show you the big picture, it kind of
Absolutely.
enlightens you, you know. So that's
Absolutely.
great. And it kind of sounds like I know you do a lot of motivational speeches and you go out to schools and teams and other places. So it kind of sounds like that you're kind of paying it back the same way that it was given to you.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what it is, man. It's me paying it back and paying it forward, honestly, because the things that I do now, training the athletes and also speaking and stuff, I never wanted to do it. I
Mhm.
was always just thinking about playing ball. And
Right.
so when I got done playing ball, it was kind of like God pushed me into doing it and sharing my story and sharing, because there's other kids just like me, either
Sure.
getting in trouble, or they don't have the self-confidence in themselves. They're not inspired to
Mhm.
take it serious. And so, man, that's where it stems from for me and for everything I do.
I like how you said you watched them and how they did things professionally, where sometimes now kids will watch athletes and just see a lifestyle or see
Yep.
something else, but
Yep.
not what probably was what got them to where they were. And that's nice that you were able to see and take that view of it other than what you see, commercials or whatever. So that's
Yep.
really good.
Yeah, that's
And that's
awesome.
always been, yeah, that's always been big for me because, you know, I pride myself on being a student of the game, being a student of, whatever I'm doing, and taking the not only just the physical craft serious, but also the mental side of things, paying attention to what they're doing, what they're not doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, why not
Mhm.
to do it. And so that's always been big for me, being a student of the game, man.
Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
great. So Pete mentioned that you wrote a book. How does one go about wanting to write a book, and how did you figure out how to do it?
To be honest with you, I don't really like think about I don't really think about a lot of things before I do it. I
Mhm.
just do it, and then I figure out the rest later.
Gotcha.
That's
That's
how
great.
that's how I approach things. Like if I got a goal in my mind or something that I want to do, I'll get it done and then figure out all the steps and details after the
Gotcha.
fact. Because if I get consumed and think about steps and details, I'm probably not gonna do it.
Right.
Right.
So as far as like writing a book and everything, it really just came from again my mentor telling me that I should share my story and write a book,
Right.
and how his kids out there and parents and families out there that need the information that I know and have learned. And that that was pretty much where it came from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's awesome.
that's a good spot. I mean, not many people can say they've written a book or that they're
Yeah.
an author. So
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's pretty
yeah.
cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, man.
Um, so so obviously we know you through the lacrosse world and training and why lacrosse and how did you get your start into lacrosse?
uh so I got my start in lacrosse. I want to say, so I got out of college in 2019. I was working out at the field that I train at now, at Roswell Area Park.
Mhm.
And while I was working, I was still working out, preparing to like take my next steps in football, because
Okay.
I had a bunch of opportunities. I worked out for a ton of professional teams, and nothing worked out from it. And then I stopped working with the agent that I was working with at the time. But I was still working out, working on my footwork, working on my game and everything, trying to, make it and everything. And what happened was a parent had came up to me and she was like, "Hey, can you train my son?" Like she asked me, what position, like what sport do you play?" And then I was like, "I play football." And she was like, "Hey, do you train? Do you train other athletes?" And I was like, "No, I don't train." And she goes, "Well, I need somebody to train my son. Would you train him for me?" She's like, "I've been watching you and everything. You know what you're doing, and my son is in his first year to play football. And he needs someone like you." And so I had told her, I was like, "He can come work out with me. I mean, I'm out here every day. He can come out here. I won't charge you guys." And what happened was she's the coach for Roswell girls lacrosse, Brooke Magnus.
Okay.
And so she was like, hey, she saw how I helped him physically, but she also saw how it changed his confidence and his mindset. And she comes up to me randomly and she says, whatever you just did for my son over these past 6 months, I need you to come do that for my team. And so I was like, I don't know nothing about lacrosse. I never played. I never heard of it. And I told her, I was like, if you can just teach me the game, if you can teach me what y'all doing and how y'all, like, if you can teach me the game, then I'll work with your girls. And then I started working out with their girls and everything. And then I started paying attention to it. And then I realized, I was like, this is just like football and basketball, but they got a stick in their hand. Yeah. And so I fell in love with it, man. It was like I in the same time of that transition, I know you asked why lacrosse. Mm-hmm. Lacrosse is sticking with me now, and why I chose to focus on lacrosse other than football was because I was in a big transition phase in my life of redefining who I was when I got into lacrosse. Football had just ended. I had been playing ball. I had been playing sports all my life, and sports were finally over. And so I needed a new identity. Mm-hmm. And so when I started working with the lacrosse girls, I realized the girls that I was helping was who I was growing up, lacking confidence, lacking proper footwork, lacking mental toughness. And I was like, man, this is where my need is. And so I start again, referring back to my point earlier of being a student. I started watching games. I started going to games. Like Brooke, she would bring me to her games to let me learn the game. And I started watching games on ESPN and YouTube and just started studying the game. And I fell in love with just the new component of having something new in my life, but also just the technique it takes to be successful, the mindset it takes to be a great lacrosse athlete. And I feel like I was born again because I really was born again.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's really
man.
Cool.
All right. So this is kind of a two-parter, but give us something that, in your opinion, is underrated and something that's overrated when it comes to skill training.
For me, something that's underrated is not teaching the application of why you're doing what you're doing. Like a lot of like trainers and coaches, they can give you drills, but they can't tell you why you're doing it, how to do it in a live game, and what to do when that don't work out. Like I try to teach all my players how to have a plan, have a plan, but then also know why you have that plan, but then also know what to do if that plan don't work out. And so I think that is very underrated because a lot of people don't. It's all, y'all have lacrosse girls that's about to go to college. Everything is all mental, and I think a lot of what's underrated is making it apply to a real live game, making the training apply to a real live game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's underrated to me.
So it's like not doing a drill. Do it like it's a situational thing, not just the drill. Think of it past the drill and think about how it's going to make you better.
Yeah, like why are we doing this footwork drill or why are we doing this speed drill? How does it relate to your game and what you're doing? And I like to even go even further. I like to train all of my athletes. I want them to be able to teach the material back to me so that I know that they got it. And to where they can get to a point to where they can do this stuff on their own and not need a trainer or coach.
Right.
And so that's why that's the underrated part to me, the psychological part of tying it all in together.
Yeah. What's your overrated? What do you think an overrated is?
Man, I have two, man. And when I saw you guys wrote this down on the question, I started laughing because I have this conversation with a lot of people all the time. One is overcomplicated drills, and two, specializing in the sport too early. Yeah. I think I just, for me, with the fancy drills, again, does it correlate, and does it translate to the game? Will it truly help them go from practice to a live real game? It's one thing to practice in like a bunch of footwork drills, but 99.9% of the time you won't have ladders and cones in the game. It's going to be a real live physical body in front of you that you're going to have to run and get up and separate from. And so as far as specialization, it's a trending thing right now that's going on, where a lot of club teams are wanting kids to only play lacrosse at an early age. And I don't believe, being a former elite athlete myself, working with elite athletes and having friends that are in the NFL and NBA, we all played multiple sports and did multiple movements growing up. Yeah. And so it's like, yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, it's like going back to what you said earlier, when you were talking about how you got into lacrosse, like there's so many components of sports that cross over, and like you being a football and a basketball player, well, I can think of a few things right off the top of my head that correlate to lacrosse. So my kid never really got a chance to play a second sport because it was always just too much going on, and with having other kids, it was like kind of you had to pick your poison basically. But you can definitely tell the girls that play, like I'll just say the girls that play basketball, they're usually really good on lacrosse defense because they have the similar type skills. So I mean, I totally get what you're saying about playing multiple sports.
I don't necessarily, now if that's because I want people to hear me when I say this, like I don't want people to think that I only believe in like don't specialize. If you gotta specialize and that's your focus in that way, and that's the way that you want to go, I'm all for it. Yeah. I just don't like how people think that that's the only way to getting the athlete to where they want to go.
Yeah, well, in our last interview, we were talking to Molly and Adam. We were talking about college coaches. You hear it all the time, not wanting kids to specialize, and they would rather take multi sport athletes because they have an understanding of different games and whatnot. But it's almost like it's ingrained in the culture right now that it has to be. And whether it's like where you live, like if you live in the South, it's football or basketball or baseball, like it just becomes really ingrained in the culture of where you're at that that might be what everybody sees, and it's not like you said, it's not a negative. It's just we need more people to kind of say, hey, this is important. Club directors, this, that, or the other. It needs to be shared. And I remember a couple college coaches talking about if they're in the football season, coaches need to let them go to a prospect day on the weekend because that's might be the sport that they excel in even more, might be where they can go to college. So it's almost like having an agreement and an understanding of be an sport athlete, but if you have to go to this or that, make some concessions both ways. And I think that's important.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Not enough dialogue maybe, and that's what needs to happen between coaches.
I think definitely.
Definitely. So you how did you come up with the me versus me motto, and why is that important for you to share with young athletes?
Man, because I'll tell you the story about where it came from, but I'll tell you why is it so important right now. Because I just been paying attention to, we live in a TikTok age right now. We live in a social media world. And so it's easy to compare yourself to other players, especially like when you're going through the recruiting process. Yes. I just noticed that the biggest thing I see from kids is they compare themselves to other players, and they hate themselves for what they don't have. Right. When in reality, everybody got their own strengths and weaknesses. And I try to remind the players that your strengths might be someone else's weakness. But what most players do, especially young players, they glorify other players' strengths, and they make themselves like look bad because they got everybody else on a pedestal. Right. And so where that came from for me was when I was in college. Man, in football, I've played against some of the best talent. Like I've played against guys that went first round in the NFL draft. In high school, I played against a ton of guys that's in the NBA and NFL. And so in college specifically, though, we would play. Man, in football, we would play like big teams, like big SEC teams, and we played this one SEC team by the name of Alabama Crimson Tide. Y'all ever heard of them?
Maybe.
and so
A
and so
little bit.
and so I'm talking about, man, everybody on their defense. I think that year we played them, everybody on their defense went like either first, second, or third round in the NFL draft. And they had a ton of talented guys. But throughout that week of practice, and I was a freshman when we played them. Throughout that week of practice, all I could just remember was how locked in I was. I was so locked in because, again, my goal was to, make it to the NFL. And so the whole week of practice, school, everything, I made everything. I was intentional about my day. I made sure I studied to take care of my schoolwork, but I also was putting in a lot of extra work on the football field to make sure I was prepared for the game. I was studying film. I was studying those guys. And I remember one time I was in the film room and my coach had came up to me. He was like, I ain't gonna say what he really said, but he said, he said, you don't see anything different, do you? But he didn't say anything. He said blank different.
Yeah.
And I was like, Coach, to be honest with you, no. I was like, I don't see what's the hype about. And I just remember just feeling so confident. And one, because I was prepared, and two, because like I was like, yo, they put their helmet on the same way that I do, but I know for a fact that they ain't working as hard as me. Like they had a bigger program. I know I would be watching the film and I would go, I know they're gonna be partying the night before they play us. I know they're not taking practice serious this week. I know they're not, working hard in the weight room this week because I went to a smaller D1 school, and so they're a bigger D1 school.
Mm-hmm.
And so the entire time throughout the week, I was like, nah, like the competition ain't them, it's me, it's my own shadow. And so I got out there and we started playing them, and I was winning a bunch of reps. I was catching, but I almost scored a touchdown. I was like, dog, like this is it. And so ever since that day, it gave me that assurance to know that if I really say, what I want and I really believe it and I put the work in to do it, and I stay consistent with putting the work in, I can compete. I can compete with those people that quote unquote seem like tougher competition.
Right.
And so I just carry that message with me because a lot of players was asking me, yo, coach, how do I deal with tougher opponents? Or how do I deal with an opponent that's faster than me or that got a better shot than me? And so I started thinking, I was like, dog, that's crazy that's even there mentally.
Right.
And so I just came up with the whole like me versus me. Like it ain't lacrosse attacker versus defender. It's not my team versus that team. It's me versus my own shadow. If I'm working hard and I'm being consistent each and every week, all I got to do is outdo that version of me. And then when I meet up with them, I know they ain't working as hard as me.
Yeah.
And so if I can outdo me, they can't outdo me.
Yeah.
And so that's where that came from for me.
That's awesome. And I think you're like perfect for girls lacrosse because I think there's a stigma about girl athletes and female athletes and about how it should be and what it's supposed to be. And I think sometimes they don't understand that it is a struggle with yourself. And, we have daughters, so we know self-image is a tough thing. And because you care about what you're doing, sometimes people look at you differently. And that's not how, but to be able to share that with female athletes to help them get that confidence, I mean, you're making a difference, and that's pretty awesome.
I mean, who would have ever thought that three little words would have such deep meaning? It's
absolutely.
Like it really resonated with me. And when I was prepping for this interview, I was thinking about your motto, And everything you mentioned in the first part was what went through my head. Like
Yeah.
it's uncanny how like dead on the nail you are with what I was thinking. So
Yes, sir.
that's pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. So what would be some advice you'd give athletes that are younger and they're just starting out in lacrosse?
Uh, to don't be afraid to be different. Don't be afraid to, don't be afraid to be different, and don't be afraid to, really be in love with yourself. Like I said, there are some things that are greater about you. I don't think that, a lot of lacrosse athletes are not told that enough.
Right.
They're reminded on how bad their stick work is, or they're reminded on why they can't shoot and score and dodge. They're reminded on all of those things, but they're not reminded on the fact that there is something great within all of us. You know what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
if I can help pull that out, then I'm gonna do that. And that's my biggest advice. Like, don't be afraid to be different, and don't be afraid to, stand out from your peers. You know what I mean? I like to say that, the stars don't blend into the night; they shine bright for a reason. They
It's perfect.
because they dare to be different. And so I try to remind players that, man, every time they come around me, I not only just want to train them, but I want to make them feel seen, make them feel valued, and make them feel loved. Because again, we're working with women, and so
Mhm.
young women, they struggle with feeling seen, feeling valued, feeling confident,
Yeah.
struggle with self-love. And so
Yeah.
once I find that out, that's that again was why I stuck with lacrosse, because it's like it hooked me, man, and I love bringing the best out of people. And
Yeah.
so don't be afraid to be different, and don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yeah,
That's
I
good.
mean, one thing I remember when Lacey was working out with you last fall was like you do things and you demand excellence, but you do it in a positive way. Like it was so refreshing to see you not letting them get off the hook for, dogging the drill or, making a mistake. I remember you stopping the drill and showing exactly what you want to do, and you made them redo it and redo it, but you were
Yeah,
never mean or negative about it. And that was like,
yeah,
it was very refreshing to see because, sometimes frustrations get in the way and people lose their cool and they say or act differently, but you were never like that, and that
absolutely,
was really awesome.
absolutely. And that was another one of my things too. Um, just hearing, because I hear a lot of times how a ton of coaches treat players badly and everything. And so
Mhm.
just paying attention to the lacrosse space and everything, man, I was like, I I don't want to be an example of that.
Yeah.
Because again, at the end of the day, people will always forget what you do, what you say. People will never forget how you make them feel. And
Right.
so, and hearing that and seeing that, man, I think it's a disservice to not only to the parents that's coming to bring their kids to work with me, but I
Right.
think it's a disservice to myself and the industry to call myself a coach, but to be tearing them down and treating them
Right.
badly and everything. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was one of my things that was it's a no go, you know.
Yeah. You were talking about confidence and some advice. What's maybe something that you can help athletes with to build that confidence?
It definitely comes from preparation, man. You got to prepare. You got to put the work in.
Yeah.
But I think, a lot of people, um and I have a whole framework that I teach on this within my like mentorship program. I
Hmm.
teach the athletes how to, you know, develop their I teach them how to develop their confidence. I teach them how to develop and keep their commitment. I teach them how to control what they can control, and I teach them how to accept challenges as growth and not challenges as a way for them to, get down on themselves. And then as far as I also help them with their self-talk as well, and I like to call it the 3 C's. I teach them how to catch it, check it, and change it.
Right.
I teach them how to catch it when it slips in their mind. I teach them how to check it and put it in its place, and I teach them how to properly change it the right way. And the last C, I should have said, I teach them how to do all of those things consistently.
Yeah.
So I teach them how to stay consistent with, putting in the work. I teach them how to stay consistent with their self-talk, how to stay consistent with, working on the right things when you're putting in the work. And so, yeah, man, that's how it definitely takes time, but the same way that we work on our game, we got to work on our mindset and our confidence as well.
Yeah, that's great.
So I saw a post recently that you reached 10,000 followers on Instagram. That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you.
So looking back, is there anything different you would do with building your brand of the Saire Davis Academy?
Man, I definitely, man, I just told my wife this the other day. I definitely would have got into lacrosse a lot fast. I would have took it a lot more serious, a lot faster, because I was training football. My focus was football because that's what I thought I was supposed to do because I got done playing. But I wish I would have taken it serious a lot faster. That's really it.
Okay. And then what advice would you give to lacrosse dads trying to build a brand?
Man, for you, when I read this is another question that I read and started laughing too, man. I was like,
I hope that was a good laugh.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a good laugh. It definitely was a good laugh. I just thought to myself, I was like, man, I think y'all got the right aim. Just stay consistent and like you're doing with the YouTube and the social media, just taking social media a lot more serious. That's another thing I wish I would have done earlier. I wish I would have taken social media a lot serious earlier. And so, man, that's really my thing for you guys is identify where you guys going with the brand and everything and what you guys want to do. And identify how it can help the market and how it can serve the market of the people that you guys are trying to serve. And take social media serious and be consistent with social media and everything.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So we talked a little bit. I talked a little bit about how you were starting to get girls from other states and whatnot. So what's kind of next for you? What direction are you going, or what do you see in the future for you?
Man, definitely. I see, obviously still working with a lot of, other girls as far as like training and everything for dodging and footwork. But I also see me branching out into developing what I'm working on now is I've created my own confidence curriculum. And so I'm working on now licensing that out to different club teams because no one focuses on the mental and confidence side of lacrosse. Everybody focuses on the field. But like I said earlier, 90% of these athletes, they struggle mentally. They don't know, how to necessarily process things, how to be confident, how to, how to have the right self-talk. And so I've created my own curriculum. It's called Win the Game Within. And I teach lacrosse athletes how to win the game within. And so I see for myself and my brand, having my own events and having my own camps and showcases where I bring different people, to the camps and showcase and clinics and everything, where we not only just help you with on the field, but we also help you mentally as well. So just like any other event or showcase that you guys would take, athletes to in terms of getting them recruited, I'm going to be doing the same thing, but it's going to be a different spin to it and everything.
It's great. You found another niche.
Yes. That was it. Finding that niche and finding that aim and everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, when we get this all published up, and what's the best way for someone to contact you?
The best way for someone to contact me is just reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is Saire Davis Academy. That's SAIRE Davis DAVIS Academy. Or you guys can email me at info@sairedavis.com.
Excellent. Well, Sai, we really appreciate chatting with you today. It's been a very good conversation, and we've really enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll get out and see you soon and catch up with you down the road a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for having me on again, and good luck to you guys with everything.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Saire.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great
you
day.
guys take care.
You
Absolutely.
too.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.